Hello. This is Jonathan, and you're listening to the Johnny Talks podcast, the place where we help you achieve your financial goals. Hola, amigos. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are. And if you're a new listener to the show, special warm welcome to you. I really appreciate you tuning into the show. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. I appreciate it even more. In today's episode, we will speak to my friend Kyle from the Impact Investor. Impact investing, along with ESG investing and socially responsible investing, are terms you may have heard of lately. But what do these different terms mean, and how can you contribute to a positive impact through investing? Kyle will help us today with this question. He has been a sustainable investor working for the last 10 years with investment banking and private equity, and of course, he has a strong passion for personal finance. Together, we will discuss as well how we can have a positive impact through investing, and if this way of investing is profitable at all, how we can manage our daily purchase decisions, and Kyle will give us as well some tips to reduce your carbon footprint when traveling, his other passion, by the way. This episode is for you if you want to make a positive impact through investing, and or if you want to understand the basics of impact investing. So without further ado, let's hear the interview. Hello, Kyle. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Yes, I'm doing fine. Excited to speak to you because today we're going to talk about one of your ventures or blogs, and that's about impact investing, something we have already spoken on the podcast, but it's not usually the main topic. Usually we stop at investing only here. So we are definitely curious to hear more about impact investing, what it is, etc. But before we start, Kyle, maybe you can give us a little bit of explanation on all what you do, because I know you from you were writing a blog called Financial Wolves, and I know you have a traveling website, and now you have this impact investing website. So can you tell us a little bit how that all flows together? Is it one or the other? Is Financial Wolves still there? Tell us a little bit about all this.
Yeah. Thanks, and thanks for having me on, Jonathan. This is great, and happy to be here talking about impact investing. It's something that's super important to me. I previously had spent 10 plus years working in sustainable infrastructure investing here in the United States, mainly on a private equity basis, where worked on behalf of investors, investing funds in renewable energy projects and sustainable projects and infrastructure in North America for the last 5+ years. And those other 5 years were more on the client advisory role, as well as some corporate finance roles for sustainable infrastructure. And so it's something that's paramount. It's something that's been at the core of my professional career for a number of years now. But, I have also been very passionate about personal finance in general, right? Helping people and using content and my knowledge, right, and my personal experiences to help people better their personal financial situation. And I previously had done that through sort of a side project, a personal finance blog, and called Financial Wolves, and that I scaled that up to a certain level of size and sold that site. Sort of moved on from that project. But in addition to that, I'm also very passionate about travel, and so traveling the world, exploring the world. I consider myself a world citizen, right? Love talking to people from all over the world and learning from them, right? And so pairing that along with the impact investor is, just two of my core passions. And I knew that I wanted to do something for my day job that revolved around my passion. So I'm officially now, starting here in 2022, start of this year, I am doing these two projects full time, and have moved on from sort of the traditional office setting, and now kind of in more of a distributed digital online based career. So those are my projects. This is how I kind of came about, and
it's fun how it all mixes together, how it all follows a logic, and now you're still working with personal finance, but then you mix it with your passion for renewables, responsible investing, etc. So no, that's good to hear, Kyle. And then one question I have is, of course, it's a trend that we also hear. I mean, from an energy perspective, renewables, you named it, solar energy, wind energy, etc. And I know wind energy is taking off as well in the US. This I know as well through my personal job. But we also hear it in the investing world. So, we hear terms such as impact investing, as you mentioned. We hear ESG funds, so environmental, social, and governance funds, social responsible investing. So maybe before we get into really the episode, can you give us a little bit of a definition about all these terms? So ESG, social responsible investing, and impact investing, just so we can put a frame on it and understand a bit what's it all about.
Absolutely. And that's part of the reason why I started the site, The Impact Investors, because I think there's sort of just convoluted definitions, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to help retail investors understand the different prongs and the different approaches to invest your money for, a positive impact and do good with your money. So ESG investing, right, is environmental, social, and governance investing. The benefit of that is that it focuses on the three core prongs that are very measurable, right? It's very easy for companies to measure their environmental impact, their social, and their governance impact. And so environmental would be doing things like reducing your carbon footprint and your carbon emissions. Something on the social side would be, promoting equality amongst your business, right? Empowering individuals in various positions and coming from various backgrounds, right, and promoting equality within your business in general, from both a monetary perspective as well as organizational sort of roles. And then same thing with governance, is there's some overlap there, but promoting at least governance-based system where individuals from all backgrounds have an opportunity. And also there's either a flat structure or equal sort of governance and shared governance amongst the business. Transitioning to socially responsible investing, that's more of a values-based investing strategy. So it can be different from each person, right? My values are going to be, different than yours, right, Jonathan? And so,
sure.
and they're going to be different from our neighbors, right? And so it's dynamic based on each individual person and what they value and how they want to put their money into a certain, stream. And so that might be like, my core value is I only care about the environment, right? And so, if that was your kind of core strategy, you would focus, that's your top priority in terms of the dollars that you're investing to promote, your values.
And can that be as well, for example, equality, gender equality or...
Right. And it could be a pie, right? Say it's, you focus on gender equality, you focus on the environment, reducing, carbon emissions, and, you believe in, equal pay or some, amongst corporations. And so, you would focus on companies that are doing exactly that and excelling at all, at those prongs. And so it's really a blank canvas for each individual to invest at what's paramount and core to them. Or even like, not investing in guns or weapons or anything that promotes war, right? You can rid yourself of every single dollar that you invest has zero footprint into, weapons or something of that nature, right? And that's something that I think a lot of people should sit and evaluate and look at their portfolio and understand, is this promoting values that are aligned with my personal, your own personal values. So that's socially responsible. And if you transition to impact investing, it's a bit of a different, it's almost a hybrid in a way of the first two, but you're investing for positive impact. So it's a little bit of a hybrid, but it's a different way of thinking. You need to think about it as, my dollars will result in what in terms of impact, right? My dollars that are invested will result in a positive change with a measurable positive change, right? So when if I invest $100,000 in this, I need an impact of Y, right? I invest X to get an impact of Y in positive change. And that can come in a lot of different ways. It's very dynamic. It can be based on values, but it also can be based on very measurable things like carbon emissions or reducing your carbon footprint. It can be, but as long as it's very measurable, that's your goal, right? You need to be able to tie your dollars to some form of positive impact. And I think a lot of people, sort of a myth with impact investing is that, in my opinion, is that you're not focused on financial return. I think there's a way out there that you can pair a financial return together with positive impact. You shouldn't have to, they're not discrete. There's a world that exists where both of those can happen.
Yes, it's part of a later question I have. So we'll come back to returns and profits later on. What we have heard a lot here in Europe, at least, is that ESG investing in the banks, in financial institutions, I mean, this is coming up a lot since 2-3 last years and even before. But it's really, I mean, it's becoming a trend. And then there's a lot of, how can I say, questions about, is this fund really following the ESG criteria, etc. So how can we, for example, if I want to invest, let's say in a ESG ETF, for example, or in a ESG friendly company, how can I find out about this? I mean, because I'm listening to this episode and I'm thinking, yes, I want to invest with an impact. How can I do this?
I think, the best spot is different resources similar to the impact investor and the content that we're producing. But not just us, right? There's rating agencies. I think you need to do your own personal evaluation of each rating agency and their performance, their reputability, reliability, and sort of even approach, right? Those can be resources. There MSCI is one, right? Morningstar. There's even Sustainalytics. There's plenty of different ratings groups and analytics-based organizations that are providing good information on what is truly sustainable or even values based. And so use those as a resource to start learning about what makes a company better positioned for your values or your positive impact relative to others. It can be discrete between each company, right? Or industry. I mean, certain industries, there's significant challenges to deal with just for one prong of something. For environmental, right? Think about the world of cryptocurrencies, right? That has a significant challenge, and so those need to be measured. Those individual companies within that industry need to be measured against each other, if that makes sense, right? It's sort of an industry grouping in terms of the top performers within that industry group as it relates to your values.
Okay, so do I need to go to, for example, Morningstar? I go to the website and then I need to look for whichever company, for example, let's say Coca-Cola or I don't know, let's take a car company, BMW or Porsche. I go to Morningstar and then I can find all the information, or at least part of some criteria I need to analyze to compare, let's say, BMW against Porsche, for example, or Volkswagen.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll provide a scoring similar to credit ratings or credit scoring. There's now ESG scores, which are only going to become more and more important. And some, there's expectations that this might be a requirement for certain public companies to report on in various aspects, right? But here you can use that ESG score and understand each rating agency is going to have something different in terms of their method of how they score. So read into their methods. But yeah, you'll have a benchmarking score for that particular company as it relates to ESG.
Okay, that's quite good. I mean, for example, I'm doing a lot of stock picking myself. I mean, it's usually a limited number of companies, but for example, at my brokers, I do not see yet ESG criteria. So maybe that's a trend coming up, or I need to go to the Morningstars of this world or MSCI just to dig more into it.
Yeah, and they'll provide a list of different funds. We have Impact Investor. We have a list of funds that are best suited for ESG. So there's a number of ETFs that are will be the S&P 500 X that are remove out any carbon based companies, right, or significantly carbon based companies. And so there are ETFs and funds out there that are being positioned to, remove out anything that is, detrimental to your ESG goals or build up. And there's a ton of products out there now for funds all across the board on ETFs, mutual funds, bond funds, et cetera. And there's only going to be more of these type of products, in my opinion, in the future. And so there's a lot to choose from, but use your typical your scanner. Talk to if you have a financial advisor, talk to them about this as well. And if you are in existing funds, you can always look at the prospectus and see what is actually in the fund. And then, and those top weighted type companies that it's invested in, you can look at those individual ESG scores for those companies to start doing your own buildup of like what your own personal exposure is to, ESG companies.
No, that's excellent. I will have a look myself just to see. And do you see a difference in this ESG criteria? I mean, not the criteria themselves, but the approach between Europe or US, for example, or in the world, like in Asia Pacific. Is there a similar approach, or are we working at different speeds?
There are certainly different approaches and working at different speeds. I certainly would say Europe is further advanced in terms of drawing a concrete sort of line, I guess, or being more critical of different ESG scoring and reporting by companies. But it is a vast ocean, really, of it seems like there's a new reporting agency out there, every month that's doing this.
Yeah,
and so
okay.
it varies across the board. Here, in my opinion, in the States, there's a lot of people talking about it and marketing it, but there isn't enough that's actually being done, in my opinion, on holding public companies with their feet to the fire on some of these issues and making strides on that front in reporting. We'll see. Hopefully, more standards can be introduced, but yeah. And so I would certainly say that there's variations between where you're located.
And then, Kyle, you mentioned it in your answer. Cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, all of this world. When we think about cryptocurrencies, we know that there is mining involved. There are some, all those transactions. I mean, they require a lot of energy, a lot of power. I mean, there have been articles on the energy level that it consumes. So can you tell us a little bit about that? And I mean, should this be excluded then from our investing portfolio based on impact investing or guidelines, or can we still keep it in?
Yeah, it's something I've given a lot of thought to. It's personally, I do have exposure to various cryptocurrency, and they do consume a significant amount of energy. That being said, I envision a world where traditional cities and towns that have been very dominant, their entire community has been dominated by coal or some form of fossil fuels or natural resource consumption. Those towns here in the States have been decimated by jobs and the shutdown of coal. And I'm not saying that mining should go into those towns and restart a coal plant. I'm saying what should happen in a world that should happen is an ecosystem of renewables and production of renewables that can harvest and supply that energy consumption. And it can be a more forward progress of job creation. So not only would you hit on the environmental side of building, this renewable ecosystem to generate power for mining, but also then you have the social and potentially even the governance side of things where you're promoting jobs and progress within these individual communities. And this is not just the US. I mean, there's places around the world that there's communities that could use that sort of revitalization. And this is a forward-thinking, high-growth, industry, right? It's game-changing, right? And this could be something that can empower communities to really revamp and reshape the way they do business. And so I think there's a significant opportunity there. It's very hard to solve for that opportunity, though. I think people need to put the underlying miners accountable to be doing the right way, not the lowest cost because it drives more, profit for them, but something that can be a shared ecosystem amongst everyone. And I think that's what's been at the core of cryptocurrency is where they've excelled is really that governance side of things, sort of that shared economy. It's Web 3.0, where, everyone's distributed and shares in the profit amongst everyone. And it doesn't reside in a centralized environment. And so that's one spot of the bright spot of cryptocurrency is that certain cryptos have really excelled on the G governance and side of things. You talk about very flat, distributed sort of, governance protocols. And so that's something that is my approach. I envision a world that renewables and that environmental side of things does not have to be coal-based or carbon-based. The only way we can get there is by the people investing in it, throwing their hands up and saying that this is not okay and not supporting that and doing whatever you can to position it in the most sustainable light. This is most sustainable way. Sorry.
And then just to go back to crypto, are there some cryptocurrencies that are less energy consuming than others, or is it all very demanding?
Yeah, there's certainly cryptocurrencies that are less energy intensive than sort of Bitcoin. There's a great example would be something like Cardano. There's Ethereum basically 2.0 is projected to consume 99% less energy. So whatever you can do that's in a proof of stake rather than proof of work concept, in supporting that, like that is what can progress a world where we're consuming less energy. And so I myself have, staked and supported Ethereum 2.0, given that it puts that ecosystem in a world where we don't need to rely on carbon.
Okay, no, that's good. That's excellent. So there are still ways to do it, and Ethereum. I mean, it's from an investing point of view, it's still interesting. And talking about that, I think it's quite clear what impact investing is all about, and then ESG, and then social responsible investing. Now, all this investing, and we can do our research on. You named it. What's the name again? Morningstar and all these platforms. But is it all profitable? Because I'm investing my hard-earned money. I want to become financially independent at some point in the end, and I'm happy to have an impact, a positive impact on the planet. But does it deliver me something? Do I get returns from it? Or, is it better to invest in, let's say, a gender equal company or I don't know, like an environment conscious company rather than any company? Is it better for my portfolio?
I personally believe it is, right? I think sustainable investing is really about doing the right thing up front. It's not taking the shortcut way because it results in more profit, today. It's about doing the right thing that will harvest sustainable profits for the future, for the foreseeable future, right? So examples are the return on solar, the payback period might be longer than, taking the shortcut route for sure, but it's relying on a resource that the sun is not going anywhere for at least 100 million years, I think are the projections. It's not going anywhere.
Okay, we're good.
And yeah, I think we're good on that front. And so, right, and now you have solar that can last 30 years, right? You can size your solar generation to have no input, no resource consumption for 30 years, and that expense side of things is completely gone for 30 plus years. That's just one example. There's hundreds of different other ways, right? And so focusing and supporting people that think about it differently, think about the world differently, and not just are looking for the quick answer, are people that are companies that are going to win out in the long run. We can't be patching up the world with Band-Aids. It needs to be done right from the onset with a number of different factors considered. And that means that you're also making very smart decisions about the way business is conducted. You're evaluating a lot of different things, right? What's the impact on, the aviary system or the bird ecosystem in your community if you're making an investment in a wind project, right? And so there's at the end of the day, it's about making decisions that will allow future generations to flourish as well. And that's what will win out at the end of the day, in my opinion.
No, I really like your answer. It's long-term perspective, which I'm a big, big stand. I mean, I stand for long-term every time. So no, that's really makes sense. And you explain it very clearly. And then this is, we covered the investing side. So that's where you are specialized, Kyle. But then in our daily lives, when it comes to managing our money or purchase decisions, etc., in which way can we contribute to this? Let's say not impact investing, but impact purchasing or impact managing our money. How can we continue on this trend?
Yeah,
with less impactful. Not less impactful, but with small decisions, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really good question. Something I think about all the time, and I want to kind of try to provide a perspective that's different than the investing side. And something I like to think about is every single resource that's out there, the brick that makes up your home to, the ink in your pencil or your pen, or everything that makes up what we use and consume is finite or requires energy to be produced. If it's not natural, if it's not something that's naturally renewable, it requires something to be made. It requires a consumption of something on our planet to be made. So make those decisions about when you do have material objects or possessions or purchase decisions, that each purchase decision is taking something from the earth or impacting the earth in some way, or even impacting people and communities. And so understand where it comes from, how it comes, how it's made. Breaking those type of things down can really go a long way to impacting your wallet. Because if you think about it, like, do I need more of these material objects in my life or not, right? You'll end up actually saving money when you realize that you start thinking about, my purchase of this has a ripple through effect of the carbon associated with it in creating it, the jobs in which the people that are making it, their pay, all of those decisions, or all of those that kind of procurement of that product have impacts throughout that life cycle. And so if you can think about just reducing your consumption, I think at the end of the day is really something that will help your wallet, one, and then two, it's certainly not going to hurt the environment if you consume less and really think about each object or form of consumption that you have with some careful detail.
Yeah, sure. And then, for example, just to take a concrete example, food, because we all need to eat. So do you say that, we should look for the least global impact possible? I mean, for example, in terms of carbon footprint, so should we shop only locally, or should we try to avoid buying, let's say, I'm in Europe, so let's say I buy meat from US. I mean, I should avoid that. I should try to buy local or this kind of stuff.
Yes, I would advocate for that, for buying local. One thing I certainly envy and appreciate when I visit Europe is that a lot more appreciation for that locality, the local procurement of different cheeses or meats or vegetables, and even those local food markets. So to the extent you can buy and support local curation, it helps not just the local farmers and local people curating the food, but also then reduces the length that it has to travel to get there, which has a carbon impact. Here in the States, right, California supplies way too much of the rest of our produce, right? I forgot the numbers, but it's a majority, and they're bringing tomatoes all the way from California to the upper Midwest. And one thing I'm very bullish on is the idea of distributed farming and greenhouse farming or indoor farming, where you can have these, decentralized, distributed pockets of curation at more of an sort of an industrial scale if we need it. That's if you need sort of that industrial scale. But at the end of the day, if we don't need that industrial scale, you can stay local and purchase from people within your local area. It'll reduce carbon as well along the way. And buy small, right? One thing that can't be underestimated is just the amount of waste that, from over purchasing from food that does have an impact. And if it is waste, that has its own life cycle too. That can be reused in a different way or composted. And so if you purchase small, consume less, don't throw it away, it has a better overall result.
Okay, one thing, Kyle, is that in Europe, we enjoy a good local products, but there's it's not all that rosy. There's as well fraud and everything. So we need to be careful as well. But yeah, I think the message is clear. Huh? Try to buy products that do not need to travel so much. So, and I think that's as well valid for the rest, for physical products, books or whatever you buy. Try to look for products that do not have a big impact on waste, etc., with long, complex supply chains, etc. So if you can buy simple products that do not have such a big CO2 impact, you cannot always know, but try to buy local.
Yep.
So that's good. And then one thing, because I know you like to travel. So of course, when you travel, and if you from the US and you go to Asia or you go to Europe, so I mean, this also has an impact. So is there a way to travel sustainably then? Because it's a hobby that many listeners have, and people cannot wait until all restrictions are gone to travel. So should we travel less? Should we travel more efficiently? How do we do this?
Yeah, I think that's my largest contributor for a carbon footprint. I drive an electric vehicle and have tried to electrify everything that I own. And my business uses hosting and servers that are all carbon neutral. And so, but the one contributor is the major contributor for me is flights, right? And flying. And so what I try to do is take less flights. But do it so like if I'm going to Europe, right, just take one direct flight to a central location in Europe rather than multiple unnecessary flights, like a connecting flight that's an hour when really I could take maybe an hour and a half or 2 hour train direct. So I've just this past summer spent about 8 weeks in Europe, and I flew just right into one central location of Amsterdam and then relied on train travel throughout a number of countries throughout Europe. And train travel, that's great, especially an electrified system, great way to reduce your carbon footprint with travel. And I wish the States here had, a more efficient system in that regard. Local transportation here in Minneapolis, we do have an electrified light rail system, which is efficient, and that's what I use to commute. Another way, right, if you do like driving or doing road trips, seriously consider at least a hybrid type vehicle, a vehicle that is efficient, fuel efficient if you do, need to stay with fuel, but also consider an electric vehicle. I did a few road trips in my electric vehicle, and it's very refreshing. You drive through a national park and just not having that gas and those emissions, it can be very cleansing mentally. So think about those type of things. And if you do take flights, one thing I would like to evaluate more is, purchasing carbon credits or carbon offsets to offset my, the carbon that my footprint leaves. So that's something that you can certainly do. And there's a number of different places that you can do that.
Okay, no, very good, very good. That's these tips are excellent. I like the flying to a central place like you did in Amsterdam and then taking the train. So that's a good one. So Kyle, I think we came at the end of the show. So I want to thank you for all your valuable knowledge and experience that you brought to the show and the tips. These were excellent. I think everyone can use them. So no, thank you very much. But before I let you go, Kyle, we have, as you may know, always our 3 quick fire questions. So are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, very good. So the number one question is, we talked a lot about investing. So what has been your best investment so far?
Yeah, I think has been investing in myself, but not
Mm-hmm.
just taking the time to improve as a person. I think it's really been about putting the actual my own actual money into the things that can help me learn, save time, improve as a person, and even fail. I think that's a huge thing, right? If I put,
Mm-hmm.
my own true dollars into something and I fail at it, that can be that is a good thing. It gives me a chance to learn, not make the same mistake twice. And so really kind of investing my own dollars into me as a person and a business that is based on my passions and values is there's nothing more sort of valuable and rewarding than that, because at the end of the day, that is sustainable investing, socially responsible investing. And I took my own personal money to invest in things that into my own job, really,
Mm-hmm.
to harvest my core passions.
No, very good. And then the number two question, I think it's a bit linked to the first one, but is there a book that you can recommend to anyone?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple because it's always hard to say. Just pick one, right? I don't read all the time, but when I do read, I have a few set of books that are just sort of my staple, and they're almost like resources that I grab every once in a while. So they're not the most riveting books. They're not Harry Potter, right? But the first one is Benjamin Graham's Intelligent Investor. That's one where I really learned how to evaluate businesses and really how businesses can grow or find value in a business or position how a business is positioned for future success, as well as those boring accounting metrics to determine a company's profitability and stuff like that. But that was also Warren Buffett's kind of core book that he learned and had at his hand, and he ended up being just an okay investor. So I figured that I'd follow that and try to build a core of investing knowledge there. And then the other one is a book called Automate the Boring Stuff. It's more programming based and Python programming language based, but you end up learning a lot of different small things that can streamline your world and streamline what you do on a daily basis. And it, helps stimulate the thought process of, how can I make my life easier? And, we only have so much time on this planet. And so, yeah, make sure you do stuff efficiently.
Yeah, no, very good. And then the last question, Kyle, is there a purchase below $100 that you can recommend to everyone?
Yeah, well, I can point you to a book. It's it's a digital product. It was a book called Make Traffic Happen, which was it was an SEO oriented book I purchased, or it's not a book, I guess. It's more of a digital product. And that was the best purchase I made. It opened my eyes to this whole world of sort of like digital marketing and SEO and blogging and content. And I read it and I studied it as much as possible. And that ended up being a gateway for me to open my eyes to the world of sort of online entrepreneurship and building a business that, was based on my values. And so without that, I don't think I ever would have migrated from working in a traditional setting to, putting my own savings into making that investment in myself. So that really opened my eyes to that, and I learned a lot, and it was a valuable resource to help me build sort of something on my passion.
Oh, very cool. And actually, the 3 fire question with you, it's actually 3 times investing in yourself in different ways, basically.
Yep.
No, very cool. So, Kyle, before we go, where can the listeners learn more about you, learn more about impact investing?
Yeah, check out my website, theimpactinvestor.com. You can join my newsletter. There'll likely either be a form or a pop-up where you can join in my newsletter, where I'll share direct sort of personal experiences for sustainable investing, how to improve your sustainable investing goals, So you can interact with me directly through that channel. Feel free to join there. And then, if you want to hang out with me as I travel and explore the world, you can visit my travel blog via travelers.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, Kyle, it was a pleasure to have you on, and I wish you a fantastic day further.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much, Jonathan. It was great to chat.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you learned something from it. And if you found it useful, please make sure you share it with a friend, or you can also rate the show in your favorite podcast app. This will help the show to grow. So if you do so, thank you very much. And now let's go through the key takeaways for today. Number 1, ESG, SRI, and impact investing, a definition. So ESG investing, that is a type of investing that focuses on 3 core measurable prongs: the environmental impact, for example, carbon footprint; social impact, promoting equality amongst individuals; and governance, for example, a governance-based system where individuals from all backgrounds have an opportunity. SRI investing, socially responsible investing, this is more of a blank canvas. It is a values-based investing strategy, which will be different for each of us. Core values will be different to you than for me. It can be environment, gender equality, equal pay, and of course there can be more than one. Impact investing, that's the last one. It's a kind of a hybrid of the 2 other ones. It's investing for a positive impact. It's a different way of thinking. The way it works is my dollars will result in a measurable positive change. Number 2, how can you invest in ESG companies? You can find information thanks to rating agencies such as MSCI, Sustainalytics, Morningstar. I put an example in the show notes with Tesla, for example. They will provide you with the necessary information. You can look, of course, at Kyle's website, The Impact Investor. And the way to look at it is to look at ESG measures for companies within the same industry. It doesn't make sense to compare the ESG measure of a car company and a food producing company, for example. And this is probably something, and I agree with Kyle here, that ESG scoring per company will become more important in the future. I can only see this trend growing. And then as well, what you can do is, if you're more into ETFs, well, there are ETFs suited for ESG, like for example, S&P 500 index funds without carbon-based companies, for example. Number 3, cryptocurrencies. Yes, well, we all know that crypto consumes a lot of energy worldwide, but some cryptos are less energy intensive. For example, Kyle mentioned Cardano, Ethereum 2.0, which will consume less energy. And this has as well to do with the protocol behind it, proof of stake versus proof of work. And it is those cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin that are proof of work, which are demanding in energy, which require all this hash power, etc. Number 4, is all this sustainable investing profitable? Well, according to Kyle, and I agree with him, sustainable investing is about doing the right thing for the long term. It is not about looking for the quick gain or looking for shortcuts. It's about doing the right thing for the foreseeable future. This type of investing will harvest sustainable profits for the future, and these are the companies that will win in the long run. It's all about making decisions that will allow future generations to flourish. And last but not least, the day-to-day money management. How can we make it more sustainable? Well, everything that makes up what we use or that we consume is finite. It requires energy to produce, unless it is renewable. Try to make more decisions that reduce the impact on the earth, on the people, or on the community. Think about how is it made, where is it made, and by asking these questions, you will end up buying less stuff, and hence you will save money and you will reduce the impact on the planet. Regarding food, what should you do? Well, you can buy local, supporting local farmers, local producers. This will as well reduce the length of travel that is needed for the food to travel, and hence the carbon footprint impact. And as well, try to buy in small quantities to reduce waste. And last one, if you like to travel, and I think that applies to most of you, this has an impact too. So yeah, if you fly overseas or if you have a long trip, try to fly to a central place. And then once you're there locally, favor electric or hybrid modes of transportation. And as for your daily life, if you can reduce your carbon footprint by not using a vehicle, using an electric vehicle, etc., this will help as well. And if you combine that with sustainable investing, buying more responsibly, I think all these small efforts will compound and will help to create a better world for the future. So that was it for today. Thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to me. Make sure you subscribe in Apple Podcast. And of course, please do not hesitate to contact me. If you have any questions or feedback, send me an email, john@johnnytalks.com, or connect through social media at Johnny Talks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And amigos, once more, thanks so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.